The Donkey and the Wolf. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village nestled among green hills, there lived a humble donkey named Dusty. Dusty worked for a kind farmer, hauling loads of hay, wood, and supplies across the village and to the neighboring town. He was strong, dependable, and patient, and the farmer treated him well. Dusty enjoyed his life, though his days were long and tiring, and he spent much of his time in the farmer's barn, resting for the next day's work. One chilly evening, Dusty found himself walking home from a long day's work when he happened upon a dark forest at the edge of the village. He'd heard stories about the forest from the other animals, tales of wolves that prowled under the cover of night. But Dusty wasn't too worried. He was large and strong, and besides, he was just passing through. Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease as he walked along the narrow path, the shadows growing deeper and the wind picking up. Suddenly, from the darkness ahead, a low growl echoed through the trees. Dusty's ears perked up, and his hoofs came to a sudden stop. He squinted into the gloom, and there, emerging from the shadows, was a large, menacing wolf. The wolf's eyes gleamed in the moonlight, and his sharp teeth were visible as he bared them in a slow, deliberate grin. "Well, well, what do we have here?" the wolf said, his voice low and smooth. "A plodding donkey, all alone on a dark road at night. What an easy meal this will be!" Dusty's heart pounded, but he tried to remain calm. He had heard of the cunning ways of wolves, and he knew he had to think quickly. He wasn't as fast as a horse, and he wasn't as fierce as other animals in the forest, but he was clever in his own way. "Oh, please, Mr. Wolf," Dusty said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I may be slow and ordinary, but I'm no easy meal for someone like you. I've heard tales of your ferocity, but let me tell you something. If you eat me, you'll be missing out on something wonderful." The wolf raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Dusty's words. "Really? And what, pray tell, could a donkey like you have that I would want?" Dusty took a deep breath and said, "I have something more valuable than any meal. I have access to a treasure trove of food, the best hay, the juiciest grains, and the finest vegetables. If you spare my life, I'll lead you to this place where you can feast to your heart's content. All I ask is that you don't eat me." The wolf, always eager for an easy meal but also clever in his own right, thought about this for a moment. "A treasure trove of food, you say?" he asked, his ears twitching. "Well, that certainly sounds tempting. But how do I know that you're not trying to trick me?" Dusty nodded and smiled. "I understand your doubts. But think of it this way. If I trick you, you'll have nothing. But if you trust me, you'll be rewarded with food beyond your wildest dreams. I can even show you the way myself. What do you say?" The wolf, always hungry for an easy advantage, decided that Dusty's offer was worth considering. "All right, donkey," he said, his voice laced with suspicion. "I'll spare your life this time. But if you're lying, I'll make sure you regret it." With that, Dusty nodded eagerly. "I promise, Mr. Wolf, you won't regret it. Follow me, and I'll show you the way." Dusty led the wolf down the path toward the farmer's barn, the wolf trailing behind him, his mind filled with thoughts of the bounty Dusty had promised. As they approached the barn, Dusty could feel his nerves beginning to rise. He wasn't sure if the wolf would really be satisfied with the food inside, or if he would attack the moment he saw the other animals. But Dusty had come up with a plan, and he hoped it would work. When they reached the barn, Dusty paused at the entrance. "Here we are," Dusty said, his voice steady despite the growing tension. "This is where you'll find the finest food in the village." The wolf, his stomach growling, couldn't wait any longer. He rushed inside the barn, his eyes scanning for the promised food. But as soon as he stepped in, Dusty quickly bolted the door behind him, trapping the wolf inside the barn. The wolf howled in surprise and rage, but Dusty stood on the other side of the door, feeling both relieved and a little guilty. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wolf," Dusty called through the door, "but I had to do it. You would have eaten me the moment you found me in the barn. I wasn't going to let that happen." Inside, the wolf thrashed and growled, realizing that he had been tricked. He had been so focused on the idea of an easy meal that he hadn't stopped to think about Dusty's true intentions. The more he struggled, the more he realized that he had been outwitted. Finally, after what seemed like hours, the farmer arrived at the barn. Seeing the wolf trapped inside, he quickly opened the door and chased the wolf out, throwing a few stones in his direction to make sure he left the farm for good. The wolf, humiliated and hungry, retreated into the forest, vowing never to trust a donkey again. As for Dusty, he went back to his daily work with a sense of pride. He had used his wits and his calm thinking to escape a dangerous situation. Though he wasn't the fastest or the fiercest, he had learned that cleverness could be just as powerful as strength. The farmer, grateful for Dusty's quick thinking, rewarded him with extra hay and a special treat that evening. Dusty had earned it, and he had also learned that sometimes, even in the most perilous situations, a calm mind and a clever plan could save the day. The end. Moral of the story. The story of the donkey and the wolf teaches us that while strength and speed are valuable, intelligence and quick thinking can often be the key to overcoming danger. Even when faced with a challenge much greater than oneself, one's wits and resourcefulness can make all the difference.